Welcome back, learners of the Iron Parish. Today's explainer isn't just a dive into folklore. We are conducting a full-blown autopsy on the ontological conclusion of our own ambition. So, I need you to step into the boots of a hardened scholar with me for a minute. Imagine the air is thick with the choking yellow smog of the foundries, and we're forced to confront a grim warning. What actually happens when human striving overreaches and just collapses into an automated nightmare? Let's find out.
Your gods are dead, little spark. I have written their elegies in brass cogs. Stop running. Let the forge claim its fuel. Wow. Just let that sink in for a second. That chilling monologue right there perfectly sets the dark, Gothic fable atmosphere we're navigating today. These are the terrifying Nietzschean stakes we're dealing with. The Reaper doesn't come to judge you. It literally just comes to finalize the ledger.
Okay, so let's open this dark ledger and methodically break down the lore. We'll be hitting 5 key areas: the death of the spark, the evolution from spirit to cybernetic titan, the philosophical terror behind the logic of the press, the concept of colonizing the sacred word, and finally, a clockwork eternity.
Kicking things off with part 1, the death of the spark, an automated nightmare. We really have to confront the reality that this entity is so much more than a ghost story.
What we're actually dealing with is the concept of Götterdämmerung, the twilight of the gods, but here it's made brilliantly, horrifyingly manifest in brass and bone. It's a perfect mirror of our own industrial ambition turning into a literal existential trap. Think about Friedrich Nietzsche's warnings, but wrapped in this incredibly dark romanticism. This entity is the physical manifestation of our own industrial engineering, completely repurposed to build a cage for the cosmos itself. It's a predator that looks at human life, with all of our messy, beautiful soulfulness, and just sees a chaotic error that needs to be permanently erased.
Moving on to part 2, spirit to cybernetic titan, tracing the pale cynic line. To really grasp this, we have to look to the past and understand how a natural death fetch was violently corrupted into an agent of high industrialization. There is a stark juxtaposition between where this entity started and what it has ultimately become. It began as the Alb. This was a shadowy deathfetch, a solitary wanderer governed by the pull of the dirt. It was a completely natural, albeit predatory, part of the cycle of life. But then, it crawled into the black heart of the foundries. It submitted to the screaming torment of mechanical augmentation and emerged as this massive cybernetic titan of charred bone and reinforced cast iron. It traded in a simple flint blade for a hydraulically assisted scythe. So what used to be a highly individualized harvest is now a systematic factory process, mimicking the relentless expansion of 19th century Ruhr Valley factories. It is the absolute, total industrialization of cosmic fate.
Right, let's jump to section 3, the logic of the press crushing human ambition. This is where the physical threat evolves into a philosophical terror that fundamentally unmakes the nature of human ambition. In the lexicon of the Iron Parish, we actually have a specific word for our creative fire: streben. It's the soaring, unpredictable, incredibly beautiful geometry of the human spirit. It's the literal engine behind our art, our magic, our individual will. But you have to contrast that warmth of streben against the freezing coldness of the Reaper. To this machine, your passion, your art, your natural variation, that is all just a disruptive, chaotic error. The Reaper wants to replace the heat of passion with a highly cynical framework that views humanity purely as raw material for a perfectly ordered state.
And it enforces this perfectly ordered state through 3 rigid mechanical stages. Step 1 is the manufacturing of death. The harvest is entirely stripped of any ritual or romanticism. Human existence is literally just fuel fed straight into the entity's roaring internal furnace. Step 2 is the correction of error. The Reaper actively hunts the exceptional and the artistic because it views these sparks as massive disruptions to universal equilibrium. By harvesting them, it corrects the so-called error of individuality. And that brings us to step 3, the resultant stasis. This is essentially Arthur Schopenhauer's cosmic pessimism brought to life. It's a state of absolute, gray, mechanical equilibrium where the ambient warmth of the world is entirely unmade. And you know what the truly terrifying, darkly ironic part is? The Reaper actually views this flattening of individuality as a generous act of utility. It legitimately believes it is offering the universe a silent, perfectly calibrated peace by erasing us completely.
Part 4, colonizing the sacred word, delving into rune philology. We need to dissect the mechanical anatomy here to understand exactly how ancient runes were hijacked to power this thing.
Because the entity's most insidious weapon, by far, is its colonization of the logos. The primal power of language, the sacred symbols of cosmic law, the Reaper excavated our ancient texts and devoured the philology of power to enslave us. It brilliantly taps into that classic German literary fear, Think of Goethe's Sorcerer's Apprentice, right? The very tools of creation being hijacked and corrupted by cold, unfeeling calculation. The Reaper doesn't just ignore our magic. It enslaves the laws of magic itself.
What we get is a complete inversion of magic. First, you have expression turned to code. Runes that were originally meant to express the soaring human spirit are completely stripped of their transcendence. They're turned into rigid, unyielding source code to run an automated slaughterhouse. Second, we go from creation to containment. The Reaper specifically takes the sacred runes of stasis, negation, and cessation and carves them directly into its own chassis. This creates a localized field of absolute spiritual dampening. And finally, the spiritual severing. That hydraulically assisted scythe doesn't just cut flesh, it emits a frequency that vibrates to the fabric of reality, actively unmaking ambient magic and completely severing the victim's connection to the spiritual realm.
Just think about the absolute dark irony here. Sacred runes, our ancient wisdom, our primary tools used to honor the cosmos, are now literally etched into interlocking brass pistons and hydraulic tubes. Humanity is trapped inside a magical system that has been completely weaponized against its own creators. Our own sacred language turned into a mechanical program designed to automate the end of the world. It's wild.
Which brings us to our climax, Section 5, A Clockwork Eternity, meeting the cosmological undertaker.
We really have to compare the classical folklore against this grim new reality. In myth, the twilight of the gods is heavily romanticized. It's a tragic, but entirely natural end of the cycle of life. The Reaper, though, the Reaper represents pure clockwork nihilism. The mythic shadow has been totally replaced by the permanent, indifferent ticking of a clockwork heart. It is the relentless thud hiss of an industrial piston replacing ancient cosmic fate. It is quite literally the death of God achieved through absolute industrialization.
So let's tie this all together with 3 critical takeaways. Number 1, the Reaper is the absolute enforcer of universal stasis. It acts as the supreme custodian of the last man, flattening all of our creative will into a gray, perfect equilibrium where no spark can ever ignite again. Number 2, the colonization of the Logos. It has completely corrupted the sacred word, turning the deep philology of magic into an unyielding mechanical program. And number 3, which is definitely the most tragic, the mirror of ambition. You see, this machine is not some external invader from beyond the stars. It used our industrial engineering. It used our ancient wisdom. It is the natural, inevitable conclusion of our own striving. We built a trap from which no soul can fly free.
Which leaves us with this final, haunting question to mull over as we stand amidst the choking yellow smog of the foundries. Is the permanent ticking of the Reaper's heart truly a cosmic invader, or is it just the final suffocating echo of our own industrial ambition? The era of the little spark may very well be at its end, replaced by a clockwork eternity where absolutely nothing new can ever grow. I highly encourage you to ponder the true cost of our striving. Thank you so much for diving into this dark ledger with me, learners of the Iron Parish.